If your objective in the weight room is to build as much muscle and strength as possible, then using tempo lifting as a frequent training modality is not going to be congruent with your goal. The presumed superiority of this protocol as a primary training modality is still hardwired into Gen Pop fitness lore, and as such, this topic needs to be debunked once and for all, as the long-term results it provides are going to be highly subpar. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to my channel. And if you enjoy content like this, then please consider supporting my work by picking up a training program from my website. It's www.enkirielitefitness.com. I have over 60 5-star reviews on Google. You can check them out for yourself. And if you do, your gains will thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. The primary reason for this is due to a lack of adequate training intensity, i.e. weight on the bar relative to the potential 1-rep max. Basically, how much weight you can cleanly lift within any given rep range. And this is really where the main failing of the tempo lifting theory rears its head. Generally accepted ideology says that if you are lifting to maximize hypertrophy, then your sets should last somewhere between 30 to 60 seconds, or perhaps even longer. So proponents of tempo lifting generally argue something like this. A normal rep takes about 3 seconds to perform. So if you do 10 reps in a set at 3 seconds each rep, then that set only took 30 seconds to complete, which barely reaches the quote-unquote hypertrophy zone. On the other hand, if you were to perform this same set using a 3:03 tempo, that is 3 seconds during the eccentric phase and 3 seconds during the concentric phase, then each rep would take 6 seconds to perform, double the length of a normal rep. This means that the whole set will now take 60 seconds to complete, which now puts you firmly into the hypertrophy zone for all of your training sets that day. You are now maximizing hypertrophy. Hooray for you. Here's the problem with this logic. Rooted in the fallacy that time under tension in and of itself has some sort of magical hypertrophic value, it could never actually happen this way. If you double the length of each rep, artificially doubling the duration of the set to reach this arbitrary amount of consecutive time under tension that you think you need to reach in order to maximize muscle growth, then one of two things will inevitably happen. One, you will use the same training weight that you usually use when you're doing normal reps, and you will get substantially less reps with it when you are doing tempo reps, meaning the time under tension of the individual set won't actually be all that different anyway than if you had just performed normal fucking reps. Or two, you'll realize that by using the same weight you usually use, you could never actually get close to getting the same amount of reps as usual, so you will reduce the weight instead, likely being forced to do so by a significant margin. Now, with that reduced weight, you will be able to get the same number of reps as usual, and you'll be able to artificially increase the time under tension of the set. However, along with the substantial reduction in weight will come a substantial reduction in muscle tension. Now, if you chose option 1, then that would defeat the entire purpose of the tempo lifting method, because the time under tension would remain relatively equal in both scenarios. You would just be doing exaggerated tempo reps for no reason, but getting less total reps in your set, and therefore actually doing way less total work because there would be way less total bar displacement. And if you chose option 2, you would at least be remaining true to the spirit of the tempo method, but the lessened intensity would inevitably yield lackluster long-term results in spite of the increased time under tension. This is the issue with pretending like individual metrics such as time under tension offer some sort of panacea for gains. The weight being used during a given exercise directly affects the amount of tension that is placed on the muscles responsible for executing it. You can flex and contract your biceps nonstop all day long against the air, and they will never grow, even though they are under perpetual, constant tension. The fact is, maximal voluntary contractions and contractions against only mildly challenging loads simply cannot generate high enough muscle tension to create a meaningful stimulus for the body to adapt to, no matter how long those contractions last. Thus, time under tension as a sole metric is meaningless, and emphasizing it in your training sessions is probably holding back your gains. Instead of adequate time under tension, what you should be focusing on is time under adequate tension. That is what dictates muscle hypertrophy. Generating adequate muscle tension requires using a meaningful amount of weight relative to your current capabilities and lifting that weight enough times during the session that your muscles accumulate a sufficient amount of time flexing and extending under that stimulating and adequate load. Just look at any EMG study. As weight increases, muscle activation tends to increase quite linearly, often far exceeding maximal voluntary contraction capabilities and far exceeding muscle activation during lighter sets. Just pumping out reps all day long using candy-ass weights or quote-unquote chasing the pump by itself is never going to achieve this, no matter how slowly you lift the weight or how much time that your muscles spend under that impotent level of tension. Unless, of course, you have, cough, cough, assistants helping you out. Rather than obsess about the time under tension of individual sets, lifters would be far better off if they concern themselves with the total time under tension of a muscle group during an entire training session. When you look at weight training from the latter perspective, you begin to see how silly it is to perform tempo reps and actually think they have any sort of value for increasing strength or hypertrophy to anywhere close to the same level as simply doing normal reps. Why would they? When you understand that the amount of tension placed on the muscles during your sets is actually kind of important for maximizing strength and hypertrophy, and tension is directly related to weight, then you realize that rather than jerk off with ultra sub-maximal weights, you are far better off simply using more truly challenging loads and simply doing more normal reps to equalize the total time under tension under both conditions. This is going to have several advantages over performing tempo reps. For starters, and most importantly, you won't look like a numbnuts who does tempo reps. Secondly, you will no longer be completely ignoring explosive power and rate of force development training, things which are kind of a big deal, by deliberately slowing down the speed of the bar during your concentric reps. Thirdly, you will no longer be bleeding out undue energy with every single rep that you do, forcing you to use subpar and lackluster training weights for all of your sets, thereby creating much lower levels of tension and activation throughout the target musculature, along with eliciting a subpar training effect every time you step under the bar. Instead, you'll now be able to do more reps with more weight while simultaneously creating a more potent overall training stimulus and improving your rate of force development in the process instead of dampening it. And we can achieve all of this black magic by simply performing normal fucking reps. If you've been doing tempo reps and not seeing the results that you were hoping for, try this instead. Don't do tempo reps. Yes, control the eccentric phase. Don't dive bomb the fuck out of your squats, and don't crash the barbell onto your sternum during a bench press. Control the bar, but don't exaggerate the lowering phase to a painful degree. And absolutely do not purposefully lift the bar slowly on the way up. Instead, during the concentric phase, explode as fast as possible. Don't go slow, go fast. Press or pull or squat against the bar as hard and fast as possible on every single rep. Maximal intent. This is called compensatory acceleration training, and lifting this way is going to build more muscle and more strength in natural trainees while also not ignoring the entire fucking concept of explosiveness. So if you're tired of spinning your wheels in the gym, leave the tempo reps for the juiced up bodybuilders. In conclusion, just lift weights like a normal fucking person.